Shalom my people. Day after day the black community as a whole faces discrimination and systemic racism that seems to be never ending. Centuries of mistreatment has taken its toll on our community, leaving us with hopelessness and despair that affects our overall mental health as a people here in America. Take a look at these clips and I will be back with commentary.
But the legend of the rent was way past due. And then, Katie, you come in with the bass. Why you think you'll be just fine without me, but you're mine? You think
I was always taught to be strong in this world. Told to never let my guard down because at any moment I could be attacked without a moment's notice that my skin made me a target. Skin that has persevered through many trials and tribulations, from seeing my mama raped by landlords, to my father being beaten and stripped of his manhood, to my brothers and sisters being separated into jobs for this bigger system. My skin has always been under attack. Yet somehow we prevailed through it all. Through all the lynchings, literacy tests, new Jim Crows, war on drugs, the gentrifications, police brutalities, food deserts, mass incarcerations, we survived and adapted and pushed to change because our very existence depended on it. Our very existence depends on this black strength. Strength that has carried us for decades but is undermining an important aspect of our humanity and feeding in on itself. Being strong all the time took away our ability to speak about our weaknesses, our sadness, our mental illnesses. This silence is killing us. On top of that, we lack proper mental health care access and endure mistreatments by medical professionals who cannot relate to us in their practice. On top of that, we stigmatize mental illness to preserve this place of our strength, damaging ourselves, and among black children observing a spike in suicide rates because they may feel that their place in heaven is way better than their place here today, because when black life isn't valued enough for professional help, adequate housing, or even breathing, life here degrades in value in comparison to life after. Black bodies, strong black souls are floating through the wind, seamlessly letting go. Strong black bodies are screaming for help, but suffering in silence and being socially and systematically being put on quiet. Black souls are strong, but we do need help when we do fall through the cracks. That is why I want you to know that you can patch things up with me. All right, we can kick it back like it was a drive-through movie in the 1970s. We can get some help from people who actually understand us, refute our standards of stigmatizing mental illness, and fight against the structures that chronically misdiagnose what this really is. Fight against the racism that brings up our mental health issues and lowers our treatment options, bringing us one step closer to seeing no other option. I want us to see that we have a way to heal this wound that has been widening ever since day one with no means of contracting. I want us to know that the seed that we sow today is the harvest we reap tomorrow. And when we finally reap, we can find peace in these moments, noticing that the danger isn't gone, but we finally have a place where it feels like it is. The grounding of black bodies.
For decades, it's been a taboo subject, and in some communities, it still is. If you're a black man in Britain, you're 17 times more likely to be diagnosed with a serious mental health condition than if you're white. It's a startling statistic, and it led blogger and DJ Keith Dubay to make a film for the BBC to investigate why.
I was diagnosed with depression a few years ago. It was the hollow feeling of worthlessness a lot of the time. It was a horrible experience. It was very confusing because black people don't really do mental illness, so it's not something you grow up hearing a lot about. I think my lowest point was when I was continually waking up thinking, I don't want to live anymore. For over 2 years, I didn't utter a single word about my depression to anyone. I was too ashamed. But then I decided to out myself. I wrote a blog, closed my laptop, and I went to sleep. So I've woken up a couple of hours later, and yeah, I had a crazy amount of messages from people. All of the messages were positive. And I also did realize that there were a lot of people just like me that were going through the exact same things I was. One message in particular has caught my eye. It's from a 20-year-old uni student from Surrey called Simone. So when did you first kind of feel like something wasn't right?
I think one time in year 10, there was a week where I just started having breakdowns. I remember there was one time when I just started crying randomly during break time. I realized there was something wrong.
So at any point, did you speak to your parents about?
I felt like if I was to tell my parents, they would just kind of brush over it and not kind of find out the root of the problem.
Do you feel like there's a stigma surrounding mental health? You know,
With parents, especially African parents, they don't have enough knowledge about it, especially the ones that were born and raised in Africa, like my parents were born and raised in Congo. I think I'm ready to see a doctor and finally get all like checked out.
to find out just how it feels to be sectioned, I'm meeting Kameta. She's been in and out of hospital since 2010 and suffers from bipolar disorder.
After I gave birth, it was quite a difficult birth. I then went to a GP, and then when I was at the GP, apparently no one from the early intervention team was available. So they called the police. So 5 policemen came into the GP and held me down, physically held me down to the floor, because no woman in their right mind is going to give up their 6-month-old.
Wow, so how did that make you feel at the time?
Words cannot describe the pain.
So what can we do about this? We can start talking about it more, Not going to solve the problems of the system overnight, but if we do talk about these things, that's the beginning.
Shalom, my people, and thank you for tuning in to the Black and Healthy Restoring Black America channel here on YouTube, and also broadcasting on my Country Living in the City page on Facebook. I am your host, Jawanda Smith, RN Case Manager and Community Advocate. I hope you enjoyed the series of clips I showed you about the Black community and mental health. Unfortunately, our Black people don't take our mental health seriously. And as the young man who was talking about grounding bodies, we do have a strength in our people that we have had to endure systemic racism and all the laws that were against us from being descendants of slaves. Unfortunately, with that has come trauma. And the fact that most Black people will not admit that they're traumatized. And it's sad because you can see it in the behaviors in our community all over YouTube all day long. There's so much discord between our Black men and women for no reason. I mean, it really makes no sense that we fight each other all the time, but we don't understand that many of those behaviors come from what has rooted from slavery. There is a sociologist doctor named Dr. Joy DeGruy. She did a book called The Traumatic Slave Syndrome, and I'm going to post that in the link underneath the description on the video because her book actually gives a lot of explanation of why we have the behaviors we have. And I'm also going to post some resources for mental health for Black people. I know one thing that I found very helpful for myself, because at one time I did uh, suffer from depression, and I have to fight it all the time because there's there's always constant pressure, especially when you're a healthcare professional here in America. So there's a lot of pressures that come behind that, microaggressions and everything else. So, I did at one time suffer from depression, and I did find it very helpful to talk to someone. Um, even if you're, talking to a professional does help, and I also read the Bible, so that helps me as well, and in keeping my sanity in this crazy world. As Black people, I implore you to start taking your mental health seriously. So I will post links to all the information that I have on mental health. And if you're suffering from mental health, I'm also mental health issues. There's also a hotline I'm going to post if you just need to talk to someone. And please, my people, please, if you're having any issues with your mental health, please seek out professional help or get some counseling. Uh, it does help to talk these things out, and we have to start communication in this area so people won't feel so hopeless that they can't find some relief from all the trauma that we have experienced as a people in this great USA. All right. Well, that's all I have for you guys tonight. Take care of yourself and each other. Until next time, Shalom.